Yes, thank you, Madam President, colleagues. Very interesting discussion, but I want to start us, or ask you to come back to the beginning of our session, when the good colleague from Montebello talked about the Dalai Lama and the notion that what we need to do is practice human kindness. Now, I don't know about you, but that simple notion actually brought tears to my eyes. Because if we actually practiced human kindness, we would have no need for war. We would have no need to develop a military that can destroy every human being on the planet 20 times over. We would have no need for affirmative action. We would have no need, and we would not see lynchings or holocausts or discrimination, because if we actually practiced human kindness, we would treat each other equally. But that isn't the world in which we live, and frankly, it never has been. So part of our job is to recognize the aspiration and to keep reaching for a better humanity. But at the same time, we can't ignore the humanity in which we live. And yes, if we had 0 to 5 education, and yes, if every child had the opportunity to live outside of poverty and not live in fear of gun violence in their homes or on their streets, yes, this would be a much different world. But that is not the world we live in. And so 25 years ago, when Proposition 209 passed, it operated on a fundamentally flawed notion that we live in a colorblind and gender-blind society, and that we don't need to recognize, or we don't have any levels of discrimination, and therefore we shouldn't give anyone more of an opportunity than anyone else. But that never was reality. Reality, which has demonstrated itself over the last 25 years, is exactly very few women on corporate boards, very few people of color on corporate boards, Latinas making 44 cents to every dollar a white man makes. We have so many instances where there is discrimination, whether you're walking precincts and someone says, "I'd never vote for an Oriental." What did the good senator from that area ever do to have someone say, "I hate you because of who you are," or "I would never take you seriously because of who you are"? We all have stories. I've mentioned several times on this floor, growing up in a Jewish home as a Jewish person, the discrimination that I faced, that we see today when we are told in rallies that the Jews will not replace us. As a woman, you know, my good colleague from Gardena talked about walking into a room and not seeing anybody who looked like you. I can't tell you how many times as a young attorney back in the day before we had too many attorneys, or going into a courtroom and being the only woman in the entire courtroom. It's a strange feeling because you don't think of yourself that way until you walk into that room and realize you're the only one who looks like you. So that's the reality. Human kindness is aspirational. It's something we need to strive for. But until we stop the lynchings, until we stop the hatred, until we stop the notion of my nation's bigger than your nation and we'll eradicate you from the face of the earth, until we stop behaving that way, we have got to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, how can we do this better? And so Proposition 209 operated under a false sense of reality. What this effort does today is it simply says to the people of California, given what we have seen in the last 25 years, do we want to rethink this notion that we live in a colorblind and genderblind world? Do we want to recognize and try to help others who have been less fortunate than many of us, You know, we talk about the great University of California. The Bakke case, which my good colleague mentioned, that was a case dealing with the University of California, which was trying to help incentivize and allow more people of color and underserved communities get the opportunity to go to college. And what the university was told, and subsequently told, you can't even consider that. You have to pretend like everybody had the same opportunities growing up. And we realize that isn't true. And so let's take the steps now to give people an opportunity to rethink, to consider, to keep trying, and aspiring to a kinder, more equal world. We are not there. We are not even close to there. We have never passed an equal rights amendment. Women are not considered equal in the eyes of the law. And certainly people who come to us who have different color skin or different life experiences or different ethnicities or different nationalities or different religions are not treated equally. And this bill gives the people of California an opportunity to recognize that and to also recognize not that one will get a leg up because of their race or because of their gender. They will just have an equal opportunity. That's what this bill does, and that's why I urge your aye vote.